I was having y'all, your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I think it's the perfect time to give y'all an updated 90-man roster for the Washington Commanders as of today, June 18th. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. Of course, this is a pre-training camp edition of the updated roster. Just to go ahead and let you know, training camp doesn't start until July 27th, so we have a few weeks of absolutely nothing going on. Ron Rivera already said it, that until ownership completely takes over, until everything is finalized, they can't make moves. And then even beyond that, Ron Rivera said that they're not really interested in any guys out there. The only difference that if Josh Harris is able to buy the team before July 27th is maybe they extend Cameron Curl and get that out the way, but there's really going to be nothing going on Commanders-wise basically until July 27th. Well, I'm pretty sure the players report like a day or two before that. But either way, literally nothing going on. Don't expect to sign anybody, no news. So Commanders are going to have a dead period. But of course, me and Rico of Street Scores is not coming out with daily videos, all of that type of stuff. But I wanted to do this 90-man roster, first of all, because a lot of the videos that I make, the catalyst for so many of them is that I have a question or a problem or a solution in my head that I'm curious about, and then when I go do the research, look it up, think about it and stuff like that, I'm like, I might as well turn it into a video because other people out there, other Commanders fans, may be curious about the same thing. So that's one half of this, and then the second half is also I'm working on a video where I'm looking around the NFL to see where the national media and a lot of analysts rank our position groups, like where we ranked offensive line wise according to several different articles and national media members, analysts, and things like that. Where does our defensive line rank? Where does our secondary rank? Quarterback group, wide receivers, are we underrated, over, all of that type of stuff. So make sure you stay tuned. I'll probably do that video tomorrow, but I just felt like before we even dive into where our position groups rank, who were in our position groups, and so I just felt like it only made sense to go ahead and knock out this updated 90-man roster. Of course, shouts out to Hogs Haven. You know, generally like 90-something% of the graphics that I use in my videos are made by me, especially like the projection videos that I've done. If you haven't seen those yet, go check those out, where I projected the starting offensive lines depending on what's going on, what time, what place, what scenarios. Same thing with the defensive line and things like that. I do typically use all of my own graphics and make my own graphics for my videos, but Hogs Haven, the way that they organize these updated rosters, the way it's color coordinated for certain things, they have the key and everything, I just go ahead and use theirs. So shouts out to Hogs Haven once again for these updated roster images, of course, man. And so before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, the Commanders are going in a really dead, absolutely nothing period until July 27th, but that does not mean the Rico of Street Scores needs to do the same thing. So stay tuned for all of the constant content about everything Commanders. I have so many creative and interesting and random ideas that I'm working on, just like more projections, like how I did the O-line and the different defensive setups, different 4-2-5 if you want to go that way, 4-3-4, 5-2-5, 5-2-4, my fault, all of that type of stuff. So make sure you go stay tuned for all of that stuff. And of course, I'm working on film sessions for the entire rookie class. We already did Emmanuel Forbes. Quan Martin is next, and we're going to work our way all the way down to the point that we're even doing some of the notable and drafted free agents. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that. And without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
All right, so starting with the defense and also starting with the defensive line, of course, your starters are defensive end Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Montez Sweat at the other defensive end position. And this is, to me, the best defensive line in football. You can argue about maybe other teams have a better individual player, but if we're talking about an entire defensive line, I think we got it starter-wise, and I think our depth is extremely underrated, especially in the interior. Edge rusher wise, of course, the depth is a little weird because it's very talented, but the problem is, outside of our recent rookie draft picks and KJ Henry and Andre Jones, none of these guys, including the starters, are on contract past this 2023 season. After this 2023 season ends, hopefully in January or February rather than December, Nobody that you see that's labeled in the defensive end box is on this team technically under contract except for the guys in blue, the KJ Henry and Andre Jones, because we just drafted them. They both have 4-year contracts. Everybody else is on a 1-year. Either they're on the last year of their current deal or we just re-signed them for a quick 1-year deal. So we got to worry about that. But talent-wise, if we're just looking at 2023 alone, not jumping the gun and looking towards the future, but that's just something you always got to keep in the back of your mind. If we're looking at 2023-wise, though, I love this edge rusher group because James Smith-Williams was a very solid starter in place of Chase Young until he got back healthy last year. He's not the most explosive guy. He's not going to create a whole bunch of havoc plays and get a bunch of sacks, put up crazy numbers, but edge rushing wise, setting the edge defending, making sure nobody runs past your side, and then getting pressure on the QB as well. He does a solid job. I mean, he could honestly probably start on other teams' defensive lines. For us, he's definitely a depth guy. And in case Tuhill, AFL, Bada coming in fresh, the way that they contribute, I love this edge rusher group. I'm really excited about KJ Henry. I think he's good enough, and I think he's going to develop enough to where he's the direct backup to Chase Young and Montez Sweat. When either of those guys need to step out and get some rest or whatever, I think it's KJ Henry that's going to get the most playing time over James Smith-Williams, Casey Tuhill, and FL Bada. And if we end up losing Chase Young and Montez Sweat, looking beyond 2023, if we end up not being able to keep one of those guys, I think KJ Henry will be the guy that starts opposite of the one that ends up staying long term. Then, of course, you also have William Bradley King and Joshua Pryor, who's an undrafted free agent. I think those guys probably make it to the practice squad, but I don't see them making the 53-man roster. I'm not even exactly sure if Andre Jones is going to make the 53-man roster. Is our final pick of the draft, so something to watch, see if he develops and, you know, just develops at a rate that I don't even expect. I don't think he'll make the 53-man roster, but who knows? He has an honest chance to. Don't be surprised if he does, because maybe he just has that type of work ethic. From what I've seen so far in college, I don't really expect it. I like KJ Henry way more than I like Andre Jones, but I am excited about Andre Jones' potential. We'll see how that goes. And then interior defensive line-wise, it's really unfair. Even national media vote that Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen are the best defensive tackle duo in the NFL. You can argue that you have certain guys, certain individuals that may be better than Daron Payne individually or Jonathan Allen individually. But as a duo, no other team in the NFL has a better interior defensive line duo. And then again, as an entire defensive line across the board, it's really unfair. But interior defensive line wise, I think Fadarian Mathis is about to really show people why he was a second-round pick. He's going to step up big time. He was already showing us something last offseason. He was looking like something in the preseason. Then we didn't get to really see him in the regular season. But the silver lining to that is that we paved the way to, first of all, need a John Ridgeway to go get him. And then as much playing time as he got last year, he balled out, man. He exceeded all the expectations that I had for him, that I'm pretty sure the Commanders had for him, that he probably even had for himself. Like, I don't even think his family thought that he would be as good as he was, especially as soon as he was for us last year, being able to contribute as a fifth defensive lineman, a nose tackle type of guy. I'm really excited about him, but I think Fadarian Mathis is not only going to be better than John Ridgeway, which is crazy because I think John Ridgeway was really good for us last year, but I think he's also going to be more versatile because Fadarian Mathis, his primary objective, his responsibility when we drafted him is to be the double team eater, to basically be the zero tech nose tackle that eats up the center and one of the guards and allows Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Chase Young, and Montez Sweat to basically be single block all across the board. And then at that point, somebody's getting through. You can't single block all four of those guys and expect nobody to come through. Somebody's coming through no matter the O-line in the NFL. And so that's what Fadarian Mathis' primary role is. But at the same time, John Ridgeway did a good job with that. I think Fadarian Mathis may even do a slightly better job than John Ridgeway did with that. But most importantly, again, versatility-wise, position flex, I guess you could say, Fadarian Mathis is also a good 3-tech. If you want him out there because Jonathan Allen needs some rest, I'm perfectly comfortable with Fadarian Mathis being out there with Chase Young all the way on the edge, and then Fadarian Mathis is right next to Daron Payne, and then Montez Sweat on the other side of him, and that's your 4 defensive linemen. Perfectly fine with that. I still think we can wreak havoc that way against the run and against the pass. So I think Fadarian Mathis' ceiling has been nowhere near reach. He hasn't even scratched the surface. I think he has some pass rush potential to him as well. So I'm really excited about him. And then of course you have Abdullah Anderson, who I've been hearing has been making crazy plays so far in off-season practices. He's the guy we picked up, the free agent from the Falcons. I don't exactly expect him to make the team, but if he keeps making the noise that I'm hearing so far from the off-season, who knows? And then you also have David Bada, who's like an off-season all-star. We'll see if it means anything when we get to the 53-man roster in the regular season. And then Benning Patoa, we'll see with him, but I doubt he makes the team as well. Then moving on to the linebackers, man. Jamin Davis, from what I was seeing last year, I'm really excited about him being the linebacker 1. But the thing I'm most excited about, and the best part about all of this, is the fact that he's been hurt. And it's not a good thing, but of course, I mean, it's just like a little cleanup procedure, just a little recovery thing, something like, let's go ahead and get this out the way. They already knew that when he got the surgery, the commander staff and coaches and all of that, Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera, all of those guys, they knew that he was going to be available for mandatory minicamp and voluntary OTAs. And even then, he was still doing individuals, running, changing directions, planting his foot in the ground, stuff like that. He just didn't participate in team drills. But either way, they knew that when he went to go get that surgery, that he should basically be ready for training camp. And if he's not ready for training camp, then we need to question things. But I think he's ready to go. So expect him to be a full participant in all of that training camp, preseason, regular season, postseason, all of that type of stuff. So I'm really excited about Jamin Davis. But the fact that he wasn't there, unless there's just some crazy setback for some odd reason, I'm expecting him to be fully healthy. Just, knock on wood. I still need to go get a plank for that. But either way, the fact that he hasn't been there has allowed other guys to get opportunities to show what they can do. And boy, oh boy, the one guy that has made the most of it, everything from what I'm hearing from the little bit of things that I've seen, Jack Del Rio really likes where Cody Barton is. They like what he's done in practices so far. They think he's been a good linebacker. He's just been severely outshined by Khaleke Hudson. And it sounds like, from everything that I'm hearing from Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera, and all of those guys, and all of the analysts that's been going to the practices, it sounds like Khaleke Hudson is like a legit linebacker 1. It's not like he's linebacker 1 by default because Jamin Davis isn't here. No, it sounds like even when Jamin Davis comes back and he's fully healthy and ready to go, we have like 2 linebacker 1s. And I'm not saying that they're elite. I'm not saying we have the best linebacker group in the NFL. I'm not even saying we have the best linebacker group in the NFC East. But either way, it sounds like Khaleke Hudson and Jamin Davis are both good enough to where we're good. Again, I've already done a whole video with my defensive projections. If you haven't checked that out from a few days ago, I basically broke down why and explained exactly how and why with advanced statistics and everything. Like, you don't need to worry about the linebacker position because we're far more likely to go out there any given snap with 1 linebacker than we are with 3. Like, it's just, so most of the time we'll have 2 out there, but even quite a bit of the time it'll just be Jamin Davis out there by himself, and that's it. So if we have 3 quality linebackers and maybe David Mayo against the run, you never know if Farrah Gardner, Milo Eifler, or Dejon Harris step up or whatever, and they're like the 4th or 5th linebacker. But right now, if we have 3 solid to really good linebackers, we're straight, because there are going to be times where Jamin Davis is even out there by himself, and at worst we have Khaleke Hudson and Jamin Davis, who apparently look like 2 linebacker 1s right now, and we're good to go. And then Cody Barton is just part of the rotation. David Mill, you bring him in an extremely obvious rundown situation because you don't want him covering anybody. At that point, he's such a liability. You basically only have 10 defenders on the field. And then Farrah Gardner, speaking of Farrah Gardner, before we go further, just to give you an update on basically the changes since the last time we did an updated 90-man roster video, which I did a couple of weeks ago. The changes have been safety Farrah Gardner, who was on the team last year, so he's kind of like a new player, but not. He went to the XFL, then we brought him back to play with the Commanders. And then Jared Jones-Smith, the offensive tackle that we brought from the XFL, arguably the best offensive lineman in the entire XFL last year. We're going to get to that when we get to the offense. You also have tight end Brandon Dillon, who played for the Vikings, Jets, and Saints, but recently just played for the XFL Vegas Vipers. And then also DB Terrell Burgess, who played for the Rams and the Giants, and I've been hearing great things about him, but we'll get there when we get to the secondary, when we get to the safeties and stuff like that. But either way, I'm really excited about this linebacker group. I'm nowhere near as pessimistic as a lot of people out there, because even though we don't have like a Bobby Wagner, of course, or anything like that, or a Ray Lewis or a Terrell Edmonds, a Roquan Smith, anybody like that, we still have some really solid guys. In the way that this defense works, we don't really need a bunch of dominant linebackers. We just need guys that can do their job. It's great to hear that Khaleke Hudson is continuing that momentum and development from that Cowboys game. It sucks that it took him his entire rookie contract to give us 1 good game, but at least the game that mattered the most, the final game of his rookie contract, he put on his best showing. And it sounds like it's not like that was just a fluke, that was a one-time thing. It sounds like it just something clicked. Like, that wasn't a fluke. That is like who he is. What he looked like against the Cowboys is who he is now. It sounds like he's literally carried that momentum into the offseason, and Khaleke Hudson is just a really good linebacker now all of a sudden. I don't know what happened in the Cowboys game for him to finally figure it out, but now he's got it down. So again, it sounds good that we have 3 at the very least solid linebackers. I'm not saying these guys are elite. I'm not even necessarily saying that they're great, but they're good enough, and they should be better than what we've been getting the past few years overall from a linebacker group. I'm not saying that they're just Cody Barton's going to go out there and automatically be better than a healthy Cole Holcomb. But I think as a group, as a linebacker trio, they're going to be better than linebacker trios that we've had the past few years, because really it's just been Jamin Davis, Cole Holcomb, and then pray for the rest of the linebacker group for the past few years. But now I think Cody Barton is like, I think him as our third linebacker is just, we have a higher floor. He's better than any third linebacker we've had for a while. And so I'm really excited about this linebacker group. And then moving on to the secondary, really excited about this. We can start with the corners, man. We'll start outside. Emmanuel Forbes, Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St-Juste. I've already talked about over and over again who I think the starting corners are going to be and why and things like that. But either way, that's a great problem to have. The fact that we're arguing and debating about who's going to be our 2 starting outside corners, because we have 3 really good ones. Kendall Fuller is arguably the smartest corner in the NFL. He just seems to know everything, and it's just like he can tell the future, even though he's arguably the least athletic player on the entire Commanders defense. It just doesn't matter when you already know what you're going to be, where you need to be when you need to be there. If you know something before the athletic guy does, it doesn't matter if he's faster than you. If you're 2 steps ahead of him, you're still going to get there before he does. And so Kendall Fuller is just that guy, man. I don't know. It's really hard. And then Emmanuel Forbes is your first round pick, the guy that's been doing an exceptional job against Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson so far in the offseason. He's already further ahead in his development than a lot of people expected, and even the Commanders coaches who were really high on him and took him 16th overall over Christian Holmes. Those guys that are really high on him and were willing to trade up to get him and took him over Christian Gonzalez, those guys are even surprised with how good he already is. So Emmanuel Forbes is going to be different, I'm telling y'all. And then Benjamin St-Juste, man, I mean, what can I say other than that? I mean, he did the best job you can do against a Justin Jefferson possible in just existence, especially out of anybody on the Commanders. I wouldn't want Kendall Fuller on Justin Jefferson all game. I'm not even sure if I want Emmanuel Forbes on him. Benjamin St-Juste has this thing with him being 6'3" and great change of direction. He should cover the bigger guys. The way he shut down AJ Brown when we played the Eagles one of those games last year, I don't think anybody else necessarily could do that. Emmanuel Forbes is great for the Devonta Smiths and the Brandon Cook who just went to the Cowboys, so we got to worry about that, because boy, he was the only offense for the Texans last year, and he still gave us the business, man. Burnt Kendall Fuller, gave him something, gave John Bostic something, of course, as well. But I think any of us, one of y'all watching this video, can probably give John Bostic 20 yards on a route. But either way, man, I just love that we have a good problem in the secondary in several spots, but most notably outside corner. Who's going to be the 2 corners that play the most? And again, first round pick Emmanuel Forbes, you're not going to bench him. Benjamin St-Juste, he's the only guy that can cover certain guys. Like going against Mike Evans, I don't want Kendall Fuller, Emmanuel Forbes on Mike Evans. Benjamin St-Juste is our only prayer of a shot of stopping somebody that tall and fast. And then Kendall Fuller, how do you bench? He's the smartest player on the field, and it's just, boy, I'm really excited about this. And then, of course, your second round pick and Quan Martin is your starting slot. Point blank, period. He can play free safety, strong safety. I don't care where he is. Keep him on the field as much as he can. If he's not tired, he needs to be on the field somewhere. I don't care if he's the Buffalo nickel. I don't care if he's a slot corner. I don't care if he's a free safety, strong safety, and then you move Cameron Curl somewhere to Buffalo nickel or something. I really don't care. Quan Martin is just one of those players. He's so good, it doesn't matter what he's doing, where he is. You just want him on the field making plays. He's that great. But then even on top of all of that, man, the depth, we're going to ignore that left side. I mean, we can, Nick Whiteside maybe has some potential, but Trey Apke, special teams guy, period. DeMarcus Fields, not too worried about him. Christian Holmes is developmental guy. We'll see. You can't get much worse than what he was at certain parts last year, especially in the preseason. And he's only getting better, especially iron sharpening iron, man. Emmanuel Forbes, the way that he's already this good already, I think is because he's had to go against guys like Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin and voluntary OTAs and things like that. Can't wait to see him in training camp once the pads are on. But Tariq Castro-Fields is another developmental guy, freak athlete. Well, at the very least, a speed demon, extremely quick, runs a 4.3 something. Like, that's a guy that, don't be surprised. I've been hearing him making plays so far in offseason practices. Don't be surprised if Tariq Castro-Fields not only makes his 53-man roster, but also contributes. Like, like actually plays some snaps in regular season games, man. I'm telling you. And then staying with the slot corners behind Quan Martin, you have Danny Johnson, where for some reason until November he's like a 65 overall. Once we hit November and we're trying to make a playoff push, he certainly turns into one of the better slot corners in the NFL. I don't know what it is. I don't know why in the preseason he can't even cover third string Ravens wide receivers, but then suddenly when we get to November and December, he can cover a starting slot wide receiver in regular season games. I really don't understand it. And Rashad Wildgoose is another guy with some potential and some speed, so watch out for him as well. And then even though Percy Butler is technically listed as a free safety here, I want to go ahead and talk about him with Quan Martin, because him and Quan Martin kind of play a similar role where they can play slot, they can play free safety, strong safety, buffalo nickel. Either way, the talent is there. You just want them to play as much as possible no matter where it's at. And Percy Butler, I've been hearing from every source that has talked about him that he's one of the most improved players so far this offseason. He looks like a completely different guy. It's never been athleticism, and that's one thing about this offseason. At the very least in this secondary, we got way more athletic, way quicker, way faster, because Quan Martin got crazy explosion. One of the most, well, I think he has like the highest vertical of any corner since 1987 or something like that, according to RAS. At least one of the highest, like top 5. And then Emmanuel Forbes, you already know what he does with 6'1", extremely long arms, and 4.3 something speed and quickness, change of direction, and all of that. Derek Forrest is already an athletic demon. And then Percy Butler, we got him last year, but now his athleticism was never the question. It was the speed of the game, IQ, awareness, being able to read things, being more proactive rather than reactive. And now that that's starting to kind of click, just like Khaleke Hudson, man, that Cowboys game, it looked like something finally clicked. And it's good to hear that that's continuing into the offseason practices, continuing into 2023, rather than just staying stuck in 2022, just like Khaleke Hudson did in that Cowboys game as well. So Percy Butler is going to be fighting for playing time. I'm not going to go out here and say he's going to start at free safety or in the slot or anything, but he's going to be on the field way more than people probably think, because he hasn't been playing this offseason, man. You got to give him some playing time in regular season games some way, somewhere, somehow. So, and then moving on to the safety position, of course, Cameron Curl and Derek Forrest, I think they're going to go out there and show people that they could arguably be one of the best safety tandems in the NFL. I truly believe that. Cameron Curl is arguably like the MVP of our defense. As you can clearly see, when he's hurt, our defense is when he's healthy, our defense is one of the best in the NFL. I mean, the statistics show it last year. Any game he wasn't there, it was just a completely different night and day difference from when he was out there. And then Derek Forrest, man, as long as the IQ, the awareness and things like that start to catch up, again, you're not questioning his athleticism. Once the everything in the head starts to catch up and get better and develop, he's going to be a monster at free safety. I'm really excited about this secondary in general, but I think this safety group could honestly be one of those ones that we start debating by the time we get to November. Is this arguably one of the best safety groups in the NFL? Our cornerback group, you may get to that point as well, and that's a big thing, again, like I already explained with the defensive line. Our secondary improvement, man, is going to be huge, because Montez Sweat is known for always being one step away from getting a sack. But the problem has been is that our secondary has been getting burnt so quickly that people can go to quick little hot routes, slants, digs, all that type of stuff, and then guys are open, and it's like, how do you expect Montez Sweat to get there in less than 2 seconds all of the time? So now that the quarterback is going to have to really hold on to the ball a little bit longer, that one step away that Montez Sweat has always been is going to start turning from going from pressures to sacks. And so that's why I'm really excited about the secondary. And this secondary, I've already said it in several videos and live streams. We've been talking about this offseason so far that our best position groups are receiver and defensive line. You may be able to throw secondary in there, man. I'm not going to lie to you. This secondary is crazy. Jeremy Reed's an all-pro special teamer, but he's even been making plays so far this offseason, getting interceptions, looking like a really good safety. Not just a special teams guy, a safety. Terrell Burgess, again, like I talked about earlier, I foreshadowed it a little bit. He's already making plays. I mean, like literally a day or two after we signed him, or at least they announced they signed him, he already had an interception in practice. Like, this guy just came in immediately and made his presence known. So I'm not exactly sure if he'll make this 53-man roster, but we'll see. And then all of these pink undrafted free agent guys, all of those guys are respectable players in their own rights. I mean, coming from like lower divisions like Division II and all of that type of stuff. Those guys are like MVPs of their leagues. Like they're like the Ed Reed of their Division II last year and things like that. They're like the Minka Fitzpatrick of the low divisions and stuff like that. So we'll see going up to not only from Division II to Division I and then the NFL and all of that, how crazy of a talent gap that is. We'll see if they can go out there and show that they weren't just the best out of a bunch of trash people, if they truly are that good. So I'm intrigued by even the undrafted free agents, because we brought in some guys with some titles and some accolades, some like the best player in their entire league type of stuff. So I'm really excited about that. I think this defense is going to be top 5 and arguably the best defense in the NFL. I'm not lying to you. Like, for reasons I've already explained, this secondary and being better than last year is just going to make everybody else better. The defense is going to be better. The defensive line is going to be better because of it. Chase Young and Montez Sweat should get better numbers because the quarterback's going to have to hold on to the ball more. And then with all of the versatility, don't even get me started on, the word position flex starting to get on my nerves, because I prefer to get a guy that's elite at 1 or 2 things rather than decent at like 5. So the position flex thing annoys me, but at the same time, this versatility in the secondary is really unfair. I mean, you have guys like Emmanuel Forbes and I guess Kendall Fuller, who are like pretty much pure outside corners. And even though I prefer Benjamin St. Juste on the outside, he can play slot. Again, Quan Martin, Percy Butler, Derek Forrest, and Cameron Curl can pretty much play anywhere but outside. Basically anywhere in the secondary if you want to. Quan Martin can even play a little outside if you need him to. And where I'm going with this is that if all of these guys are this versatile and they can play in so many different places, so many ways, pre-snap, the quarterback can be reading one thing, and then after the play starts, Quan Martin goes from slot to free safety. Derek Forrest goes from free safety to Buffalo nickel. Now, everything the quarterback calculated pre-snap is completely jumbled, and he's either going to panic and throw an interception, or he's going to hold on to the ball longer, and here comes Montez Sweat, Chase Young off the edge, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen through the middle. I'm telling y'all, those little differences are going to be huge for our defense and our team in general this year, man. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm so optimistic about this team and this defense especially. And then moving on to the offense, man, I'm telling you, don't sleep. Do not sleep on this offense, man. I'm really, really excited. This offensive line starting with them. Charles Leno is your starting left tackle. So far, Sadiq Charles is your starting left guard. We'll see how that goes. Nick Gates is your starting center. I've heard that Ricky Stromberg technically has skipped Tyler Larson and has surpassed him. Now he's the second string center, but he's still working to become that first string center. But he's no longer third string. He's second. He's above Tyler Larson. We're hoping by the end of training camp, by week 1, Ricky Stromberg is your starting center. And then that's going to complicate things at guard, because does Nick Gates move from starting center to starting left guard? Or if Sadiq Charles and Chris Paul done well enough to where one of those guys is starting at guard, now Nick Gates is basically your Wes Schweitzer, where he's your basically primary backup interior offensive lineman. Nick Gates is more of a center, Wes Schweitzer is more of a guard, but either way, the same thing. Nick Gates can step in at either interior offensive line spot if there's an injury, but I think ideally, of course, best case scenario, Nick Gates is a backup, because again, for reasons I've already stated, I've said it over and over again, just like with Kendall Fuller, that situation or any other situation where we have a veteran, but we have a young guy with potential behind him. If the veteran's starting, cool, that's a good player. But if the younger guy with more potential is starting, that shows that they surpassed the veteran. It's not like the veteran got worse. That just means the rookie or the younger guy went from here to here. Whereas if, the Nick Gates is starting at guard or center, that just means we're still here, which is not a bad thing. But again, if the younger guy is starting, that means that they surpassed them and they're better. And so that's why I'm rooting for Sadiq Charles or Chris Paul to start at left guard and Ricky Stromberg to start at center. But we'll see how that goes. We have an entire training camp and preseason to see how that battle goes. Then, of course, Samuel Cosme is just starting right guard. Andrew Wiley is just starting right tackle. Cornelius Lucas is a pretty good backup swing tackle. They're trying to develop Braden Daniels into this elite left tackle type of thing, because he's super boomer bust, dog. With his ridiculous footwork, guys his size shouldn't be able to move like that. There's only a handful of guys in the entire NFL with the weight that he's supposed to have that can move with the footwork that he has. It's not great footwork, it's more like great foot quickness, because it's great footwork once the technique is behind it. Right now it's just pure natural ability. His foot quickness, agility, and things like that is just unparalleled at the offensive line position. Guys that big shouldn't be able to move like that. And it's just like, if he can figure out the strength and the power thing along with the technique, is literally he's gonna go from unplayable to really good to elite left tackle. There's really no middle with this guy, so I'm really interested in seeing how that progresses. But he's a really interesting guy. I mean, of course, with his short arms, you prefer him at guard, but again, his movement skills, and if anything, his lack of strength and weight, you could hide that better at tackle than guard anyway. And then, of course, you have guys like Trent Scott as depth. Tyler Larson, of course, at center, but now he's our third string, which is, I mean, Tyler Larson, your third string center. You're doing pretty well at center. Keaton Sutherland, Nolan Laufenberg, Alex Akambulu, Aaron Montero, guys that aren't very notable. Mason Brooks, though, and Jared Jones-Smith on the right side, those are guys that I really want to pay attention to. Some of those other names I just said, you know, we'll see if they make the team. They're decent. They don't really come with a lot of ceiling or excitement. Whereas Jared Jones-Smith, again, was the best, arguably the best offensive lineman period in the XFL last year. I'm really excited about his potential. And then Mason Brooks was one of the highest paid undrafted free agents out of any undrafted free agent in the entire NFL after the draft happened. So clearly a lot of teams wanted him. I'm happy that he chose us, and I'm really excited to see why he chose us, why we really wanted him, why all of these teams wanted him, and I just want to see him go out there and ball out. I haven't watched a lot of tape on him yet, so I'm still not exactly sure why he's so highly coveted, but again, just the fact that many teams wanted him, he's one of the high, if not the highest paid undrafted free agent after the draft, regardless of position, regardless of team. Hey man, I got my eye on him. And then, of course, I guess we could just go ahead and go to tight end because that's the closest thing to offensive line. Very underrated group, man. If I did this video like a month ago, I would have been nowhere near as optimistic as I am now. Even though my boy Armani Rogers is out for season, I think he's going to come back 2024. I'm telling you, he's another Darren Waller potential. I'm not saying he's going to be Darren Waller. I'm not saying that at all. But if we're talking about ceiling and potential, if we're talking about just pure freak athletes on this team, guys that shouldn't be that big and shouldn't be able to move that way, you have like Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Antonio Gibson, and Armani Rogers. Those are your top four. I'm trying to think of who you can maybe throw in there as fifth, maybe Samuel Cosme or whatever, something like that. But if we're talking about just why can a guy that big be that agile and that fast, Armani Rogers, Antonio Gibson, Chase Young, and Montez Sweat are the only guys that are like in the same tier together. So that's why I'm so high on Armani Rogers. You can find a way to develop a guy like that. They don't make freak athletes like that. It's easier to develop a guy like that than to find a guy like that, period. So I'm really excited about Armani Rogers. Don't want to talk about him too long because he doesn't play into anything we're doing 2023 unless he just has this miraculous recovery. Highly doubt it. It's not even worth rushing him back. But Logan Thomas, our tight end one, and Logan Paulson, who is a tight end, but I trust his opinion. It's not like he's just favors the tight end position and is just gonna super hype them up beyond what they are, because he was one of those people that was very critical about the tight end position before the draft and things like that, from what I believe. And so he's going to keep it 100 when it comes to everything, even the tight end position, even though he is a tight end. But he's saying that Logan Thomas has literally been our most consistent offensive player, even more than Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, all of those guys. He's not saying that they're better. He's not saying that he's better than Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson or Curtis Samuel, those guys. But if we're talking about consistent, he's been the most consistent offensive player so far in the offseason. I can believe that. First of all, he's Sam Howell's favorite target right now. When in doubt, Logan Thomas, basically. Like that's literally how Sam Howell's been. Kind of started with De'Ami Brown at the very beginning of voluntary OTAs, but it quickly became Logan Thomas, and Logan Thomas hasn't let go for the past couple of weeks. It's literally him. Like, I mean, first of all, like I've already explained, Sam Howell, of course, is like 6 foot even. 6'1" at the very tallest. He's behind 6'5", even taller offensive linemen at times. It's really hard for him to see the middle of the field just naturally, but I feel like for a guy his size, he sees the middle of the field way better than most guys his size. It's almost like Drew Brees. Like him and Drew Brees just somehow have this eagle-eye view of the field, it seems like, whereas most players, even like a Russell Wilson, as great as he is, doesn't do a great job of seeing the middle of the field. I think Sam Howell does, but either way, he hasn't been very comfortable with the middle of the field so far this offseason, but when in doubt, if Logan Thomas is over the middle of the field, he's hitting him with a very accurate pass, great touch, right where it needs to be, it seems like almost every time. Logan Thomas just unlocks something in Sam Howell that nobody else has been able to really get out of him consistently so far. It's not just the fact that Logan Thomas has been consistent, it's the fact that Sam Howell has been his most consistent throwing to Logan Thomas as well, which just sounds like Logan Thomas is going to eat and get a lot of targets, especially to start the season, until Sam Howell gets a little bit more comfortable with all of the rest of the weapons we have on the team. So Logan Thomas sounds like he's not only back to his 2021 self, but possibly even better. And so that's going to be huge, because that year, a lot of us were talking about he looks like a top 10 tight end in the NFL. And if he can be even slightly better than that this year, it's up. You know what I'm saying? And then John Bates is a really good blocking tight end, arguably our best blocking tight end, but don't sleep on him in the receiving game. You don't expect him to separate from linebackers or DBs or anything like that, but it seems like he catches everything thrown towards him. And I'll always say it, man. I'll say it over and over again. A tight end is the primary person that's supposed to get a tight end open is the offensive coordinator, even more than a tight end himself, just naturally from the position. Even George Kittle, love him, top 2 tight end in the NFL. He doesn't get necessarily open on his own. Kyle Shanahan schemes him open. He has all of these distractions, all of these other playmakers, and then the defense just kind of loses sight of George Kittle, just like the Commanders did, Derek Forrest did when we played the 49ers. Again, when Cameron Curl isn't on the field, Derek Forrest just seems like a completely different player. The entire defense just seems like it's a completely different defense. But either way, I'm digressing. The tight end position, I mean, it would be nice if you can get open on your own like a Travis Kelce, but only like maybe 3-4 guys in the entire NFL can do that. Darren Waller is one of them, which is why I'm so excited about Armani Rogers and Travis Kelce, and then maybe somebody, it's still debatable there. All of these other guys, Mark Andrews, all of these other guys are completely schemed open. So it's just like John Bates. I mean, granted, he can't separate from a linebacker, but does he really need to be an effective dual threat tight end? Not necessarily. Block really well, which is a big part of it, and then catch everything thrown towards you, and you're just fine. Cole Turner, on the other hand, I'm not going to necessarily say that he can separate from DBs, but so far he's been separating from linebackers in training camp. He basically looks like he's on that same run of terror like he was last training camp before the hamstring issue. So I'm hoping this time in the regular season, first of all, he gets utilized correctly by the offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, because I feel like a lot of last year was not only his fault, but also bad QB play and also bad O-line play, but most importantly, bad offensive coordinating. That's the best way I guess you can word it. Some of it was on him. I'm not going to put all of the blame on everybody else, but at the same time, I think Cole Turner was a big victim of just a bad offense around him, whether the offensive coordinator, bad O-line, bad quarterback, or whatever. So I think this year will finally be the year that he becomes that guy that we thought he should have been last year, and I think he's going to vastly outplay his 5th-round draft pick. And then Curtis Hodges, 6'8", man, just throw it up to him. Who can cover anybody 6'8" if Sam Howell throws it up to a spot where only the 6'8" guy can get it? Nobody has 6'5", 6'6" and up corners in the NFL. Nobody does. These guys are usually at the very tallest, like a Benjamin St. Juste, like a 6'3", maybe 6'4". That's at the very minimum 4 inches in height and difference. That's a different level of wingspan. Just throw it up there. Who can cover him? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, dog. And the fact that he's improving as a blocker is just unfair. Now, I was definitely one of those people that felt like we definitely should have went tight end in the draft, and I still kind of stand on that a little bit. I feel like we should have brought somebody in, a veteran or a guy with some potential. Maybe not like within the first 4 rounds, but as we got to like 5th, 6th, 7th round, we may even at the very least undrafted free agent or something. But we'll see how that goes. Either way, this tight end position looks way better at this point in the offseason than I expected entering that draft, for sure. Especially if you would have told me before the draft Armani Rogers would have been out for season and we didn't draft a tight end and we didn't bring in a big name tight end like veteran guy, I would have panicked. But for some reason, so far, it's working out really well, mostly because Logan Thomas looks like a better version of his 2021 self, and Sam Howell loves throwing on the ball. And then close to tight end, going from offensive line to tight end to now receiver, arguably the most underrated receiver group in the entire NFL, arguably the best position group on the entire team. See where the debate comes in is like the depth of the receiver group versus the depth of the defensive end group. Because we already know the starters, I guess she's going to have to do a stalemate, because I think Chase Young and Montez Sweat are going to be dominant. And it's just like, it's an argument of depth, basically, at that point, which position group is better. And the receiving group is not playing with y'all with the depth as well, man. Dax Milne, our starting punt returner, I'll call him automatic fair catch, but at the very least, he's safe. But I call him automatic fair catch, as I've already explained. Doesn't matter if he fair catches or not. The ball is basically the offense is going to start from where Dax Milne catches the ball. Even if he doesn't fair catch it because he's just so unathletic, he's not going to really pick up any yards for real anyway. So automatic fair catch. But at the very least, he's safe as a punt returner. And that's why he's going to make the team regardless. Unless Kazmir Allen steps up big time and takes over as the starting punt returner, Dax Milne is making this team at the very least as a punt returner passer, and he's also a receiver, so he's going to take up technically a receiver spot on the final 53-man roster. But even beyond that, he's been making play after play after play this offseason. So he's looking like technically our backup slot receiver, like Hogshaven has him right now. But of course, Dyami Brown is at the start of offseason practices. Dyami Brown was one of Sam Howell's favorite targets, of course, because of their days back at North Carolina in college. So, and I think Dyami Brown's only getting better. Once he learns how to run more than just one route in the route tree, he's going to be something serious. We saw some flashes last year, and I'm really excited, especially now that we have a guy that can consistently throw a great deep ball like Sam Howell that can bring out the best in him. He can only truly, well, so far from what we've seen last year, he can only really run one route really well, and that's basically just a non-route, just run down the field, go route, fade, whatever you want to call it, however you want to tweak it a little bit, whether he's running straight or he's running with a slight lean. Either way, he only knows how to do one thing really well, and that's run down the field really fast. And even then, he's not like a 4.3 something guy. So once he's able to develop, and it sounds like he's been doing that a little bit, to be able to run at least more than one route on the route tree, he's going to be dangerous, especially with his college teammate throwing on the ball. And then, I mean, Marcus Kemp was pretty much brought here to basically be a special teamer, but it sounds like he's been making plays in practice as well. But I'm really excited receiver-wise about Bryson Tremaine. That's why shouts out to Hogshaven for having him above Jalen Sample and Zion Bowen, because I agree. I think Mitchell Tinsley has some potential as well, going for 1,400 yards 2 years ago. He was basically Bailey Zapp's favorite target that season that Bailey Zapp had that amazing record-setting season. I think that carries some weight to it. Again, a lot of our undrafted free agents, whether it's defense or offense, come with certain accolades and achievements and titles that's just like, okay, now show me if you can do that at this level. And if they can, they're going to be something special. So he's competing as well. But again, Bryson Tremaine is my favorite undrafted free agent receiver that we brought in. I think he has crazy potential. I think he could literally just end up being basically like a better Cam Sims. So I'm excited about him. But all of these guys, and then again, Casimir Allen, I just think he tested poorly, just recovering from his injury, and I think it was just a bad day. I think he's way more athletic than his testing shows. And again, if he can be basically like our better version of Dax Milne, our more explosive Dax Milne, our starting punt returner, which he has a chance to, that could be great. That would be fantastic, but at the same time, he's dealing with a hamstring issue. Hopefully it's nowhere near as bad and lingers as long as Cole Turner's from last year, but we'll see. Haven't seen much from him in the past couple of weeks because of it. Then Carrick McGowan's always coming back to compete for special teams as a punt returner and a backup receiver. That he just does that every offseason, it seems. We'll see where he competes. Again, Marcus Kemp is just a pure special teamser, and he's not even like a punt returner, kick returner type of special teamer like most of these guys. He's like a blocker. And as you can see in some of the blocks that he had for the Kansas City Chiefs last year, some huge ones that led to some great field positions like the Super Bowl. And then moving on, I guess the closest thing to receiver, we go to running back. We'll end with quarterback. You have Brian Robinson technically as your starting pure running back, with Chris Rodriguez as backup, and there's been all this Kareem Hunt news, and apparently we really want him. We'll see how that goes. Then you have Jonathan Williams and Jared Patterson as the backups. I feel like, again, I've already explained it in the Kareem Hunt video, but to make a long story short, I explained it in far more detail in that Kareem Hunt video. That, hey man, Bradley Beal traded to the Suns. What just happened? I saw that it was between the Suns and the Heat, but I didn't expect it to actually go through, especially this fast. And it's going to include Chris Paul and stuff like that. Hey, man, to y'all Wizards fans, I hope y'all like that trade. I know a lot of y'all just want to go ahead and do a big rebuild. Y'all are tired of the halfway rebuilds where you're kind of rebuilding, but not. You're like a French playoff team, but then you're not good enough to make any noise in the playoffs, but you're also not bad enough to get a really good draft pick to get a franchise-changing player. It sounds like y'all are finally fully embracing it and just being like, let's go get that franchise-changing player in the draft. I wish the Commanders would have done that a long time ago. So shouts out to the Wizards fans, all of y'all. I know this is like a Commanders YouTube page, so I'm pretty sure most of y'all are Wizards fans. I hope y'all like the move. Kind of got off topic right there, but again, back to my main point. Long story short, I explained this in my Kareem Hunt video. Jared Patterson, I'm telling you, that being really short thing is a secret weapon, because not every team in the NFL has a really short good vision, one-cut running back on their roster that they could practice against every practice to simulate that type of effect that he has on an offense. You just don't, defenses don't know how to prepare for that on a weekly basis. And the fact that we have that in practice, and then we have the ability to just throw that out there randomly and catch a defense off guard, that's why every time we throw him on the field, he's productive, because you just don't practice against that. He gets lost behind these 6'5" guys, and by the time you find him, it's too late, because he's a really decisive, good vision, one-cut running back. By the time the linebackers are even able to kind of try to understand where he is after the ball is snapped, it's too late. He's already running through the big gap that he found way before the linebackers or the DBs found. So I think Jaret Patterson always has just this one crazy niche, like a secret weapon thing, that always needs to find a way onto this roster, but we'll see. They always seem to like Jonathan Williams more than him. And then, of course, Antonio Gibson's technically a third down back, technically a J.D. McKissic replacement, and I think he's going to explode onto the scene. I think he's going to get a lot more national praise and attention, because I think this is the year finally with Eric Bieniemy as the head coach, well, assistant head coach, and the offensive coordinator. He's going to get the ball a lot. Of course, like I've already explained in previous videos, there's so many mouths to feed. It's just like, how great of a season can Antonio Gibson have? With this being a contract year for him and Curtis Samuel and a lot of players on this team, this is the final year of their contracts. They got to go out there and ball out and show what they can do to get re-signed by the Commanders to get all the money that they want. Or if the Commanders aren't going to sign them, they want to go out there and put up great enough tape and stats for another team to want to pay them the money that they want. So it's a lot of mouths to feed. You got to get the ball to Logan Thomas, all these great tight ends. I know a lot of people are big Cole Turner fans. Then you have Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. Curtis Samuel is the gadget guy. He's going to basically be like a Tavon Austin, hopefully better type of thing. And it's just like, if Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez is supposed to get a lot of carries, and he's just trying to find a way to get the most out of Antonio Gibson. Like I've already explained, Armani Rogers on the offense, just offense alone, Armani Rogers and Antonio Gibson are the most like, how was this guy humanly possibly created? Like, as far as just being big, fast, and agile, like the perfect combination of all of those. It's only Armani Rogers and Antonio Gibson as far as on the offense for us. I love Terry McLaurin. He's fast, straight line speed, but not the most agile. And of course, with them being as small as he is, him, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson, they're not big like Antonio Gibson and like swole like Armani Rogers and all tall and stuff like that. They're not that big. So they're fast, they're all quick and things like that. They're very agile. They're supposed to be. They're the size of somebody that should be that. Antonio Gibson and Armani Rogers, man, they're just freak athlete aliens made in the lab type of guys. Antonio Gibson, with the intelligence of an Eric Bieniemy, is going to ball out for the Commanders offense, I'm telling you. And so then you got to add that mouth to feed, who, if anything, is supposed to get way more touches this upcoming season than he even got last year. And then you also got to remember that we have a mobile quarterback. So there are going to be times where Sam Howell runs it himself. Maybe it's a QB design run. Maybe it's a read option, or maybe it's a passing play. Everybody's covered. He needs to scramble. It's so many mouths to feed, but I still think Antonio Gibson is going to be highlighted a lot in this offense, because he's a mismatch waiting to happen. If he's out at receiver, there's no linebacker quick enough. There's no DB strong enough, and maybe not even quick enough sometimes. He ran a 4.3 something. He's faster than a lot of people's corners who are like 50 pounds lighter than him. Like, he's literally basically as fast as an Emmanuel Forbes, who's like 180 something. Antonio Gibson's like 220 something. Like, that's the type of mismatch he is to a secondary and a linebacker group. Really a front seven too. And it's really unfair, man. I think Antonio Gibson's going to be that for real secret weapon. I mean, if Eric Bieniemy can get what he got out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Isaiah Pacheco and all those guys, I just don't see why he can't do that with Antonio Gibson, who's a better athlete than both of those guys, period. So I know I've talked about Antonio Gibson for a long time, but I just think this is his time to really shine. Then, of course, you also have Alex Armah as a fullback, I guess, technically, and he's from Atlanta, so I'm always rooting for him, but we don't really have room for a fullback. I'm surprised he's even here for the 90-man roster, but I think it's more so for the same reasons like I already said with Jaret Patterson. You got to have a certain guy to simulate certain things, because if you don't, and then you have to prepare for a team within a week, you're not going to be ready. It'd be nice if you can go ahead and prepare for that, voluntary OTAs, mini camps, and training camp. Some teams still carry fullbacks. So it's nice to have a fullback in practice every day, every week that you're practicing against throughout the offseason, so that by the time you're ready to face that team coming up, you don't only just have 1 week of simulating it, you had the entire offseason of simulating what do we do as a defense when the offense we're going against has a fullback featured in their offense. And again, I think we have the same thing with Jared Patterson, and I'm surprised more teams don't do that. But hey, that's just me. If I were a head coach, I would love to have a Jared Patterson on the team and just throw him out there every now and then. We'll see how that goes. And then also, before we go as well, I only talked about Sam Howell very briefly, but this quarterback room, man, I like the talent. Now, Jake Fromm, as a Georgia Bulldog fan, please, Tim Demorat, please surpass him as the third string quarterback. The NFL now came out with a rule to where you can have 3 active quarterbacks that are available for any regular season, I believe postseason game as well. I'm assuming postseason as well. And they don't technically take up a roster spot. So it's like we're going to have 3 quarterbacks available every game now. That's just the way the NFL has set it up. But I really hope Tim Demorat from the Bronx, he played in the Bronx at Fordham. Not great competition at all, kind of like a Bailey Zapp type of thing. I'm willing to give him a chance, at the very least, third string quarterback over Jake Fromm. That's what I'm rooting for. And then Jacoby Brissett is arguably the best backup quarterback in the NFL to me. I saw an article recently that he was rated the 4th best backup, but I think he's literally number 1. So that should be really fun to have him as a backup. He's pushing Sam Howell to be better, but at the same time, most importantly, Sam Howell is earning that QB1 spot. It's not like we'll just keep trying to give the young guy chances and things like that. No, the way he looked in mandatory minicamps and OTAs, everybody from the coaching staff, from people that attended the practice and everything, Sam Howell looks like QB1. He looks noticeably better than Jacoby Brissett already, and with this ceiling, he's only going to get better and better. Now, Jacoby Brissett is 4th in inches QB sneak god, arguably the best at it in the NFL. Maybe you bring him in for scenarios like that. But right now, Sam Howell's your QB1, and I love to hear it. He's only going to get better and better. Eric Bieniemy is going to make him better. Eric Bieniemy is going to make all of our playmakers better. Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas. All of these guys are going to get the ball in situations that are way better suited for their skill sets for them to take advantage of than anything they've gotten with previous offensive coordinators, especially Scott Turner most notably. And then, as we've already seen, Eric Bieniemy's impact on an offensive line, man. He calls certain plays and designs certain plays to where it makes up and hides the weaknesses of a lot of offensive linemen. Andrew Wiley is not just this certified dominant right tackle in the NFL that should be shutting down and Hassan Reddick for an entire Super Bowl. That was a lot of Eric Bieniemy calling the right plays, getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly enough to where Andrew Wiley doesn't have to block Hassan Reddick for 5+ seconds and things like that. So I think Eric Bieniemy being our offensive coordinator is going to elevate the play of every position group on the offense, but most notably the quarterback and the offensive line. I think Terry McLaurin, all of these targets, tight end, running back, wide receiver, all of those guys are going to be way better because of Eric Bieniemy as well. But I think people truly underestimate what Eric Bieniemy's impact is going to be on this offensive line. If anything, you can just assume the best out of all of these guys because Eric Bieniemy is going to make sure that he designs the right plays. I don't think Scott Turner necessarily, all offensive coordinators do it, but I don't think it was as big of a priority for Scott Turner to call the right plays to make up for our lack of talent in certain ways for our offensive line. Eric Bieniemy will. And of course, Eric Bieniemy being the offensive coordinator for Sam Howell probably couldn't ask for a better guy with who we had available this past offseason. And so, man, I'm just really excited about this entire offense. And again, you can be so optimistic about everything we have going on in the offense because Eric Bieniemy is our offensive coordinator. With these exact same players, 45 players that we're looking at, if this was Scott Turner as our offensive coordinator, I would still be pretty optimistic, but it would be way more cautious. But I just think we have so much talent that, they should at the very least be better than they were last year, even if Scott Turner was still our offensive coordinator. But then you take away Scott Turner and then put in Eric Bieniemy. I'm telling y'all, man, I think the Commanders are going to be a huge sleeper this upcoming season. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. This recording lasted way longer than I expected. I thought it was going to be like 20-30 minutes. I'm going on recording for 53 minutes. So I started at like 3:50 p.m. I guess we'll see how long it takes to edit and upload and all of that. I guess y'all probably get this video about like 6-7 p.m. We'll see. But either way, man, I really appreciate all the support, man. Please leave a like in this video if you liked it and learned anything. Of course, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Are you as optimistic about this team as I am? Where do you agree or disagree with me about certain things? Who do you think will end up starting in certain position groups? All that type of stuff. Make sure you stay tuned again for all of the content I have coming out. Most notably, well, probably the thing that's coming up next is like where our position groups are ranked according to different national analysts and media members, each position group, like where's our offensive line rank, defensive line, secondary, wide receivers, quarterback, all of that type of stuff, of course. And make sure, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, names you see scrolling the screen right now. Again, leave a like on this video if you liked it or if you learned anything. I'm sure you learned something, so you're legally obligated to leave a like on the way out. And so, man, I'll catch y'all later. Catch y'all tomorrow with another video. I'm out.